What's up? Welcome back to the channel. Put a little exercise video for you guys at the beginning. Now, why did I put that video in there? Is that so that I can brag about the fact that I train in boxing and kickboxing, that I'm a badass and all that? Man, maybe a little bit, but mostly it's because I practice what I preach. I preach a lot on this channel about exercising and kind of outworking your withdrawals. If you're a person who has gotten yourself addicted to or dependent upon opiates physically, one of the best ways when you're in the process of coming off of, whether that be either tapering or doing a cold turkey sort of withdrawal, there's no way that you're going to skip withdrawals altogether. But one way that can really help you in that process is to do stuff like what you see me doing at the beginning. I practice what I preach. I don't just preach about it, I actually do it. Several days a week I'm doing some sort of intense cardio, whether it be jogging, I do push-ups, dips, pull-ups, I did some weightlifting that day, did some heavy bag work. And I do this because when you put yourself through things that are uncomfortable to you, when you start to get uncomfortable physically with the withdrawals, you know what? The withdrawals don't seem quite as bad when you put yourself through some vigorous exercises in the gym and otherwise. And not only that, but it just helps to kind of detoxify the body. It's a natural form of dopamine, to help kind of lift your mood at a time where your mood is gonna suffer a little bit, coming off of the opiate type medication. So that's why I put that in there. It's not for bragging rights, maybe a little, but it's not for bragging rights. It's to let you guys know that is, I preach about exercise on this channel a lot for a reason. And I just wanted you guys to be reminded that I practice what I preach on here, and I do it. That it's a life that I live. So get off your ass and do something with your time on the weekends. Do something with your free time during the week. Exercise is a good way to stay off of the drugs and to move back to baseline, or get your body back to baseline a lot quicker. So where I'm at, Saturday and Sunday went pretty well. I did splurge a little bit, probably on the Kratom this weekend. I took a few gummies and stuff like that. So I slept better Saturday and Sunday than I have in a really long time. But I've stayed true to what I said I was going to do. I was going to get back on my, taper full on Monday, and that's what I've done. Completely skipped my morning dose this morning, and I didn't bring any Kratom with me to work today. Absolutely none. I have not had any Kratom all day today, and it's after 12 o'clock. I'm taking my lunch, and I still haven't had any. Prior to this, I had skipped my morning dose, but then I was tapering down at my lunchtime dose. And so as of last Friday, I was still taking one Kratom capsule around lunch. And today I didn't do that. So I'm starting back, with my taper, wherever it was that I left off this past Friday. I'm picking that back up today. How do I feel today? My body wants some Kratom a little bit, but I'm at a point now where the physical withdrawals aren't too bad. I'm not really experiencing a lot of physical withdrawals at this point. Really, it's just mostly kind of mental and emotional. I wouldn't even say emotional that much, more just mental, where my mood is suffering a little, because let's get real, Kratom does give you kind of an energy boost and a mood boost. And that's one of the reasons that people use it. It helps to decrease depression and anxiety by elevating your mood and lifting your mood. The only problem is that does come at a cost. If you're a person like me who, well, if I have my mood elevated at 12 o'clock, why not have it elevated again at 3 o'clock once my mood starts to come down? why not have it elevated again at 6, 7 o'clock once my mood starts to come down again? You know, it's one of those things for somebody like me, it elevates my mood, but why don't I just have my mood elevated all the time? Well, that and that mindset and that addictive mindset comes at a cost, because when you start wanting your mood elevated all the time, 24/7 like that, other than except when you're sleeping, then that's when you gain a physical dependence on something like kratom, and then you have trouble coming off of it, and you know, and you begin to have physical withdrawals and things like that, which are an issue, obviously. But so everything's still going good for me today. You know, I'll probably take 3 to 4 grams of kratom. I'll take my evening dose when I get home. It'll be somewhere between 5 capsules and maybe 6. I might take a 6th capsule, you know, later at night, right before I lay it down. That way it can kind of help me sleep through the night a little bit better. But I will either be taking about 3.3 grams or right around 4 grams of kratom today. So my taper is, you know, still going down. I'll let you know how it goes tomorrow in terms of if my sleep is okay. Because the biggest problem for me when withdrawing from something like kratom is always sleep. Always has been sleep. Or should I say the lack of the ability to sleep has been my biggest issue. But I'm going to make this video rather short. Again, I'm trying to keep it under 15 minutes at this point. I've had several comments as I've gotten a little deeper into this channel that I wanted to address. A lot of comments I have, you know, come from people who are coming off of, you know, harder opiate sort of drugs. I've had people who are coming off of heroin and are actually currently on Suboxone. I've had a couple of people comment that actually are coming off of a fentanyl addiction, things like that, you know, some heavier opiates. So I kind of wanted to address those things. Now, for me, if you've not listened to my earlier videos, I don't know what people would consider me in terms of my background in opiate use. My background has definitely consisted of, you know, things that would be considered heavier than kratom, but not as heavy as heroin, fentanyl, things like that. As far as my opiate use, the thickest I ever got into things was like Vicodins, Percocets. I did have a little tiny stint with Oxycontins back in the day, but I never had a prescription for Oxycontins, or I never got a extended, long-running, every month sort of recurring type prescription for Oxycontins. So I would say my dabbling in those was somewhat brief, but mainly for me it was like the Vicodins. And when I had a doctor write me a prescription for 120 10 milligram Percocets per month, that's when things started to go like this for me. You know, handing 120 10 milligram Percocets to an opiate addict every month is not the move. Of course, the doctor didn't know that I was an opiate addict, and of course I didn't tell him, because then he wouldn't have given me the pills. So, you know, I acted like I had it all under control. But that was definitely my downfall when I kind of hit rock bottom in terms of my opiate addiction at that point. So at this point, I haven't dealt with anything like that, like a major opiate addiction like that. I haven't dealt with anything like that in probably 10 to 15 years since I've had a slight stint with something more heavy like Percocets and Vicodins. But I do want to say, kind of as a response, not a response per se, but I wanted to address those people, you know. And I've had several people come on and tell me about, you know, that they're coming off of heroin, or they're trying to beat a fentanyl addiction or something like that. I want to give those guys some encouragement and just say that the jury is still out a little bit on kratom use, you know, how it affects us long term and things like that. But, and I'm not a doctor, I want to say that. There is no way, shape, or form intended to give any sort of medical advice to anyone out there, because I'm not a physician. But I think it is safe to say, and most people will agree, that if you're talking about Kratom versus fentanyl, it's a no-brainer, dude. It's a no freaking brainer. Kratom is 100 times out of 100 going to be the safer option. I mean, we all know that fentanyl is just one of those things that's super unregulated, and you hear about people, just healthy people, just falling over dead, literally, from fentanyl overdoses. We've been hearing so much more about that in the last 2 years. That stuff just scares the shit out of me. Me personally, I've never tried fentanyl. And or heroin, you know, it's just not something I've done. You know, I take that back. I did try heroin one time, but it wasn't the intravenous way. I actually took a couple of lines of it and snorted it, and I shared that on one of my earlier videos. But that literally happened one time. Outside of that, I'm 46 years old. I've only physically seen heroin with my own eyes one time, and that was the time that I snorted a couple of lines of it. So, but as far as, you know, having an addiction to either heroin or something like fentanyl, I've never had any experiences with that. But I know what I hear, and I know what I've heard, and I know how dangerous, especially the fentanyl, can be. Heroin as well. You know, people die from heroin overdoses, but we don't know how safe Kratom is in the long term. And the jury's still out a little bit on how safe it is in the short term. You know, I do know that there have been some deaths supposedly contributing, or Kratom being a contributing factor to those deaths. But I also know that once you look at the case studies, 100% of these are situations where these individuals had, it was a situation of mixology. They were mixing different medication and different doctor prescribed medications and things like that with the Kratom, and in most cases large amounts of other opposing medications were found in these people's system. So it's really one of those things where not anyone with a really good conscience can sit and say, oh, Kratom caused these deaths. You can't really say that. And you know, I'm not saying that Kratom doesn't have its dangers. I'm not saying that. But as someone who's been a user for about 4 years now, and also a person who's done a little bit overboard with Kratom at times, and a person who's been through periods where I was controlling it pretty well and not taking that much of it. I've done a little bit of both. I can tell you that, you know, I've never had any serious side effects other than maybe just getting a little dizzy from taking too much, or, you know, obviously, you know, getting a little tired, a little sleepy, lethargic maybe if you take too much in one day, something like that. I've experienced that before. Outside of that, the only problems I've ever really had with Kratom has been trying to come off of Kratom. Because when you try to come off of it, if you've been taking it for a significant amount of time, you will have some physical withdrawals, which is a lot of what my channel is about, to be completely honest. But to wrap up, I want to say to those guys who, you know, are coming off of fentanyl, coming off of heroin, we don't know what the short and long-term effects of Kratom is, but I think most anyone would agree it is a safer option than is fentanyl. It is a safer option than is heroin. And if a person is able to come off of something like heroin, fentanyl, and take Kratom instead, and be able to avoid any major withdrawals and stuff like that, and then eventually taper off of the Kratom, I am all for it. And I'm begging you guys, don't take the fentanyl. Don't take the heroin. Do whatever you have to do to stay away from those things, because that's where the real danger lies. And take the smallest amount of Kratom that you can to, you know, not have to experience any full-on withdrawals. And then from there, follow my plan, you know, to cut down your Kratom dosage by about a gram or so every 3 to 5 days, whatever you're more comfortable with. And Mix in exercise, eat lots of high fibrous foods, fruits and vegetables, drink a ton of water, help kind of flush all that stuff out of your system, and try to get your system back to ground zero as quickly as possible. And just stay off of the fentanyl, stay off of the heroin, stay off of the pain pills, the Percocets, the Vicodin, these synthesized items that are not natural in nature. And you know, I'm sure there's some negative effects of Kratom, but if you stack those up against the devastating and negative effects of something like fentanyl, heroin, Percocet, OxyContin, Vicodin, I think Kratom is most definitely the safer option, and I would much rather see someone, you know, go that route and then begin to taper off and come off of completely. Because let's be real, you don't want to be addicted to something forever, and you don't want to be, while you are addicted to something and dependent upon something, you are going to remain slave to that thing. And that's where I'm at now, trying to come off of the Kratom. So anyway, appreciate you guys checking me out again. Like the video, please subscribe to the channel. This is Corey, and you know, just talking about mental health, Kratom use, opiate use, how to curb that, how to try to take a more responsible approach with that. And that's why I'm here. So appreciate you guys checking back in, and I'll see you next time. Peace.